Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you and to introduce you to a brand new show and a brand new podcast called The Hot Seat. To understand a little bit more about The Hot Seat, we first have to understand the context of the modern day world we find ourselves living in the year 2019. It is a world in which perhaps there are more doubts, misconceptions and misinterpretations that are thrown around about the religion of Islam than in any other period of time in the history of mankind. The internet is the number one source used by people globally to acquire information on any topic, and it is riddled and full of false notions and erroneous ideologies about the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Our kids, ourselves, are being exposed to this kind of information on a daily, and if not daily, then at the very least weekly basis. And whether we know it or not, whether we choose to accept it or not, it is having an effect on ourselves, our hearts, our minds, and ultimately our understanding of this beautiful religion. To further complicate the problem, many of us find ourselves living in Western societies where the governments and the social norms and pressures are constantly trying to redefine what is good and what is bad, what is accepted and what is rejected, what Islam is and is allowed to be, and what Islam is never allowed to be. All of this, my brothers and sisters, ultimately leads to confusion, it leads to ignorance, and if Allah permits, it can lead to misguidance. The Hot Seat has therefore been designed with the permission of Allah alone to counter these kind of modern day contemporary issues head on by using the knowledge and the guidance of the Muslims of the past, the early generations of Muslims, the best of generations. There's not a single Muslim on the face of the planet today that would doubt the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed our religion for us over 1400 years ago. And that completed, holistic, perfect religion is just as applicable now in the year 2019 as it was back then. We truly do have classical solutions for contemporary problems. However, this isn't your normal average Islamic lecture series. First of all, it's not a lecture, it's a discussion between two parties, often opposing parties, in an attempt to reach the truth, bi'idhnillah. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, it's a unique, one-of-its-kind interactive podcast where you, from the comfort of your own home, have the opportunity to vote for and to choose the topic we'll be discussing on the show. You also have the chance to ask your own questions on these contemporary issues and to grill the speaker if you feel like he hasn't been grilled enough on the show itself. I'll be releasing details of how you can do both of those things at the end of this episode. But for now, without any further ado, let's get into this episode of The Hot Seat.
وإن تعجب فعجب قولهم أإذا كنا ترابا أإنا لفي خلق جديد أولئك الذين كفروا بربهم وأولئك الأغلال في أعناقهم وأولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Hot Seat podcast. Once again, Ustadh Abdulrahman hafidhahullah wa ta'ala has very kindly donated his very busy schedule to us to film another episode. A very special episode today, Ustadh. Assalamu alaikum first and foremost. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah.
So this isn't really going to be your average normal Hot Seat episode where we have a kind of back and forth discussion. It's going to be more of an interview style where we're going to be trying to derive some benefits from your life and in particular your journey to seeking knowledge. Now, this is something that a lot of people have been very interested in. And one of the reasons for that is because you've never ever spoken about this before on a public platform. And that's really where my first question begins. What is the reason why you haven't spoken about this before?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. When it comes to speaking about biographies, tarajim as the scholars call it, I've always loved to speak about the biography of people of knowledge, ahlul ilm, people who their knowledge has been testified. and who are known for khair, known for the implementation of their knowledge, known for their righteousness. I've always loved to speak about that. You know, we're living in a time where people love for people to know about their biographies, their lives, like they really matter. And that's not the case when it comes to me. I mean, my mashayikh, my teachers, I've seen them, you know, being annoyed by being referred to as a shaykh, let alone any other title like that. One day I was with my Sheikh Ahmed, and we were sitting somewhere, and there was a YouTube video that I put on for him, and he looked at it, and it was another person who was talking about his biography, and he gave me that look like, what is this? And I'm not gonna lie to you, that stuck with me for so long. He is a man of great knowledge, wallahi, sidqan, he is. Shaykh Ahmed has explained Bukhari, he did Abi Dawood, he did Tirmidhi, he did Nasa'i. He has done all the Aqidah series that you can, Sulam al-Wusul, Kitab al-Tawheed, Kashf al-Shubuhat. He has done Adab al-Mufrad. He's even done At-Targhib wa Tarhib, the Sahih version of Shaykh Albani, of Al-Mundhiri, rahimahullah. I'm talking about audios and things that if you bring together, thousands. His mu'allafat are a lot. He's done a khatm of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, where he talks about, after he finished reading Sunan al-Tirmidhi for his students, he sat down and he done a khatm for it. Khatm basically means you speak about the book, the different publications, the narrators of the chain, and a bit about the terminologies of the author. You can see he's a man of understanding, and when you read his khatm of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, you see he's done a khatm of Adab al-Mufrad of Imam al-Bukhari. مع هذا العلم, with all of that knowledge, he's saying, what is this? And then I asked him, I said, Sheikh, isn't it sometimes necessary for a person to talk about their life? Just wanted to see what his view would be. And then, you know, he was, no. And so that's why I think it's not really valuable, not important for people to speak about their biographies and their lives. Especially if you're a student of knowledge at your early stages, you're seeking knowledge, you're trying to learn the deen of Allah. You shouldn't think your life matters to other people, let alone yourself. Naam.
Yeah, I think, so I agree with much of what you say, to be honest with you. There is some benefits that I see personally, and I think it's worth mentioning because someone might see your speech just now and think, well, you're saying that thing, but you're actually going ahead and doing it anyway. And I think, even though I know you didn't want me to mention this, I think out of justice, it's worth me mentioning that we've had constant back and forth on this for the past 2 weeks. I think every time we've seen each other, we've spoken, you've tried to convince me not to do this. And for lack of a better term, I'm almost forcing your hand into doing this. And the reason why I'm doing that personally is not just for mere entertainment. It's because of a couple of reasons. First of all, when we do hear the biographies, and not necessarily an in-depth biography, but just a general overview of a journey to seeking knowledge, there's no doubt that there's a motivational aspect that comes to the viewer and the listener. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, is we mentioned on the first episode of the Hot Seat podcast that we have to be careful who we take our knowledge from. And it's not fair of us to assume that everybody knows who you are, who you've studied under. So it's important for me to say, okay, on one hand, you have to be careful who you take your knowledge from. It's not really fair on my part to say, okay, I'm not going to tell you anything about Ustadh Abdulrahman, who has been our main guest on the show. So from my perspective, that's really the reason why I wanted to do this. And I know your thoughts on it, and I know your thoughts very well, and I know the approach that you're going to take as well. When we go into this, you're really not going to be talking about yourself much. You're going to be talking about your teachers, like you've mentioned before. But
let me just say something you said, and I think it's, you know, the idea of you saying that people want to know who they take their knowledge from. Wallahi, I say this, and Allah is my shahid, and I mean it when I say this. I am not really like fussed and concerned about people whether they take knowledge from me. I'm happy if somebody says, I don't want to take knowledge from you. Because, and I don't think I should personally, just so they can take knowledge from me, I have to give them my life and my biography. Because I'm happy when somebody says, I'm not convinced with your knowledge and your understanding. Wallahi, you're truly entitled. And no one has to listen to me. I am not the haqq, and the haqq is not connected to me. There are many hundreds of people out there who are more knowledgeable than I, who are more beneficial than I, who are more sincere and genuine than I. So again, that's what's made me never want to talk about my life again.
That's fine, but from the perspective of a listener who's maybe listened to other speakers in the past, you might come across someone who really resonates with you. They've seen a Hot Seat podcast. They actually like a lot of what you say. It makes sense to them. They like your style. They like your teaching style. They actually want to learn from you, but they don't. Why? Because they're wary that I don't really know who he is. I don't know what is. So it's not about you wanting them to learn from you. It's actually them wanting to learn from you. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to do this.
We're not going to agree. Just ask me the questions, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, so I want to start right at the beginning. There's many students who have this kind of mentality, defeatist mentality, that I'm born in the West, I'm not born in an Arab country, I'm not born in a Muslim country, seeking knowledge is just not for me. Did that ever kind of cross your mind when you were younger?
No, you see, again, I really want to not take credit because I never grew up wanting to seek knowledge and become a talib ilm and memorize the Qur'an and become something. I went to nursery, I went to reception, I went to primary school, just like any other kid in the UK. I was raised in North London.
Okay.
My primary school was called Haringey Primary School. Haringey Primary School is located in Tampak Lane.
So you actually went to a secular school originally, like this?
Secular school, yeah.
So actually just a normal kid going to a secular school?
Yeah, normal school. We actually lived right in front of the school. So my parents used to, in the house, they would from the window they would look over to the school. The school was, you were in nursery, and then you were in primary, nursery, reception, and then you go to primary. Primary was broken into two. It was an infant and then junior.
Okay.
So 1, 2, and 3 was the infant, and there was a fence between the 4, 5, and 6 were the junior. So I remember when I was in year 3 and my brother was in year 4, my older brother, he would look at me at the fence and laugh at me. And so then I think I reached year 4, and then we moved from that school, Haringey Primary School, North London, and we moved to another area in North London, Highgate Primary School. So I did year 4, year 5, and year 6 there. The thing that we had, like like any ordinary kid, we used to go to school, we had non-Muslim teachers. My parents were different at home.
Okay.
So at that moment that we used to go to school, we spent so much hours in school, my father understood that the impact that school can have on us. The impact that school can have on us. So what he did was, in the morning before we went to school, my father would sit with us. I especially remember it when we moved to the second school, primary school, Highgate Primary School, which is in Archway, between Archway and Finchley. That primary school, I remember very explicitly, my father would sit with us in the morning and he would talk to us, and he would speak to us about, especially concepts of Trinity and Isa ibn Maryam not being the son of God or not being God, and the crucifixion of Isa. And I never reached this ayah at that time. It was وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى قال رب لم حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا قال كذلك أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها وكذلك اليوم تنسى. The first time I heard that verse was actually from my father. He would use that verse a lot, and he would use it in the ayah means وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, anyone who turns away from my remembrance, the Qur'an. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا, that person would have a hard life in this world. And so he would read that verse a lot. He would say to us, if you guys turn away from Allah's religion and you don't do what Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala told you to do, and you don't stay away from what Allah told you to stay away from, you're going to live a very hard life.
Wow. And
so I remember one day I got sick in school, and so I came home and I said to my dad, did I disobey Allah? Because I'm basically, I thought I was living a hard life now because I'm sick. So, my dad looked at me and said, no, but if you do, you would live a hard life. So these kind of concepts as a young child was what dad was, putting into our minds, teaching us. And so this was before we would go to school.
So what kind of ages are we talking about this time, like roughly? It doesn't have to be exact.
Year 4, how old are you?
Year 4, I would assume you are, I don't know, we're talking about 6, 7 years old?
7 years old.
So so your father actually started that early.
Oh, very early, yeah.
Yeah.
See, my dad's history, his background. Let me start from my dad's background. My father, I'm not good with dates, but my father was a student who studied in the Mamlaka al-Arabiya Saudiya. My father is from the people who took knowledge from Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz.
Allahu Akbar.
My father met Sheikh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani. That tabaqa, my dad met them. These we're talking about the 70s, the late 70s, the early 80s. My father was in the Mamlaka. He was studying there, he was learning, and he took strong aqeedah. We never grew up with aqeedah which was corrupt. But my father, as a child himself, he was born in a place called Mataban. That was where my father was born.
Which country is that in?
In Somalia.
Okay.
And my father's Qur'an teacher, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning, my father's Qur'an teacher, the madrasa that my father used to go to was owned by a sheikh called Dahir Awais, a well-known man. But his son is even more well-known. His son is, and it was my father's actual Qur'an teacher. His name is called Ahmed Tahir Awais.
Okay.
Ahmed Tahir Awais was my father's baby Qur'an teacher and close brother. My father studied the Qur'an, learned the Qur'an from that madrasa. Okay? They grew up. My father went to Saudi Arabia after finishing the Qur'an at a young age. And Ahmed Tahir Awais is a PhD holder from the Jami'ah Islamiyah Medina al-Munawwara. And Ahmed Tahir Awais was a teacher for the children of Abdul Muhsin Abbad, Sheikh Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali. Ahmed Tahir Awais was a teacher for his children. And Ahmed Tahir Awais, when he came to the UK in 1996, he lived with us.
SubhanAllah.
He stayed with us. And so what he did for us, Ahmed Tahir Awais, was he bought a Qur'an teacher for us. My teacher, Ma'alin Garad, he bought a teacher for us and he taught us the Qur'an. So 1996, I was born 1988.
So you're about 8 years old.
Yeah, but before Ma'alin Garad came, the Qur'an teacher, we had another teacher that used to come and teach us basic stuff. But before that, my dad used to teach us. My dad used to teach us. And so that was the kind of upbringing that I had. People who were knowledgeable and lived. Sheikh Ahmed Tahir, especially living at our house, he had a very good, wallahi, very amazing impact on our life. Sheikh Ahmed Tahir Awais is, one of the people who were pushing Da'wah Salafiyah in the UK in the 90s. And so that was my father. He used to make sure that every day before we go to school, he would make us, hear some reminder. And after school, when we came, my father would also give us reminder. He was at home because his work was at home. My dad used to type at home. He had a money transfer in his house. So he used to use those old those old typewriters. And he used to also write. He had a little notebook where he used to write all the money, and people used to come to the house all the time. And that's how my dad used to make a living. At that time, you have to imagine, in the 90s, there weren't much Somalis. I remember 1 or 2 Somalis in the whole area. So there wasn't much people like us at that time. But at that time, my father was really, really dedicated. He's driven to make sure that we learned the Qur'an and we learned the deen and we learned our religion.
So that kind of parenting, how important do you consider that kind of parenting at such an early age? I mean, what about the argument that it doesn't matter what you do at home, the school's just going to take your child away from you anyways, in terms of like intellectually, it's just going to infiltrate your child's mind. It doesn't really matter what the parents do at home.
No, that's not true. That's really not true. You know what my dad did? And I think this is one of the most important things that I think helps a child's upbringing. And that is, before you think about bringing any good to the child, you have to think of preventing him from the bad things. So he got rid of television. He got rid of gadgets, games, computer. There wasn't computers. There might have been computers, but we would definitely have not seen computers at that time. Mobile phones did not exist at that time. I remember, do you remember that time when T-Mobile was called 121?
Yeah, I remember that,
Yeah. So that was what people had, using. And there was a deal, T-Mobile at that time, 121, had a deal called 7 to 7.
Okay.
So 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning. It was like you had a free line to talk to whoever you wanted to.
Okay.
And it was Ericsson was separate from Sony. Then they emerged and they became Sony Ericsson. Ala kulli hal, we didn't have all of that. I think PlayStation was not even used at that time. It was a game called Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah,
do you remember it?
Yeah, I do. Sonic the Hedgehog. I remember
Sonic the Hedgehog, and
yeah.
that's the kind of games that were played in school. People were more into all of that. The reason I'm telling all of this is because all of that was out there and it really didn't affect us. People used to love, these bands, these music bands, like what's those boy bands that used to
Backstreet Boys or something.
Backstreet Boys and those kind of bands. Those is what the people, for us, we didn't have television. So when we went to school, it never used to affect us personally. Wallahi, it never affected me. I never felt like I want to listen to music or I want to know, because it's like in the morning when I woke up, I heard reminder, the speech of Allah Azza wa Jalla. When I went to school, what they said, my dad beat you to it. I'll tell you a story. My younger brother was put to a class where he had to study and he had to learn and he had to go through, I think was it RE or history? I think it was one of the two. My brother turned it down. He said, I'm not going to study RE. He rejected my younger brother, Abdul Hakim. He said, I don't want to go for RE and I'm not going to study it.
Okay.
And he told teachers, I can't come in because they were going to talk about, if it was history, then if I'm not wrong, I might be wrong, but I think it was to do with, the Tudors that you study, Henry VIII and whatnot. And of course, he beheaded this one and the church was in, you study about the church and Christianity comes in there as well. My younger brother refused. He said, Kufr, la abadan. Wow. I'm never going to study it. Imagine this. At that time, how things have changed, subhanallah. My father asked my brother what happened. My brother told him. My father said, okay, Jazak, okay, no problem. This is what you want? No, it won't happen. It reached a point, wallahi, by Allah, the guy head of education in Haringey, the whole borough, had to come down to our house. He came to our house in our living room to tell us, don't worry.
To tell you don't worry, not to tell him that he has to come.
Not at all.
In the UK?
Imagine missing, either was RE or, I don't think it was RE, I think it was history. And it was like, they said nothing to him.
Allahu Akbar.
They said there's nothing.
That would never happen nowadays.
And nothing happened. Really. So things have changed, subhanAllah.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
A lot has changed. So my father, his da'wah helped a lot.
So like you mentioned, things have changed now. I want to bring it back to the modern world. Maybe some advice you can impart on others. We do now have technology. We have gadgets. We have PlayStation. We have TVs. We have internet. We have all of these kind of things. What kind of advice would you give the parents today? They've got 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids. They want to mold them into students of knowledge, righteous Muslims. How can they do this, considering that there's so much fitna in the world?
Well, my policy with all of that is that you should stop your children from all of that. Yeah, definitely. Games, playing. I never got it when I was a child, and I've not lost out.
You don't regret it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm actually thankful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided my parents to not bringing games to my house, our house, and television. I truly benefited from it. And until today, alhamdulillah, it's one of the things that have helped me with not having to watch TV and movies and, watching this and that. It doesn't bother me.
You were never into it in the first place.
Not at all.
Many people, they might get engaged in this kind of stuff, and then when they want to turn to the religion, they find it really hard to give up these shackles. And obviously, if you've never had it in the first place, then there's no issue. Interesting. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about your study routine now. So when you were a child, we have this debate about a child, should he be focused more on memorization, more on understanding? What kind of mix did you have, first of all? Was it just memorize, or was it a bit of understanding? Like, how did it work?
As a child, we focused more on memorization because we couldn't understand everything. Child doesn't understand everything. So when you're a child, the parent should really focus on hifdh. And that's what happened. We memorized the Qur'an. We had memorized Arba'un al-Nawiyya, little mutun books, Thalathatul Usul, Bulugh al-Maram, these books. You don't study, in any way, shape or form, or you don't go through explanation to the child because he's not going to understand. How are you going to explain Ahkam al-Hayd and Tahara and Nifas and whatnot? That's the first chapter of Tahara. He won't fathom all of that. He won't be able to digest all of that information. So what he just needs to know is memorize everything. Just capture everything. Keep it in your mind. There's going to time I'm going to explain everything to you and it's going to make sense. So the first stage of the child's life is that he memorizes. And again, if the child has things that are distracting him, then it's going to affect his memorization. Truly it's going to.
What age do you flip it, or is it impossible to say? What age do you start focusing more on understanding, or does it depend on child per child?
I mean, as soon as the child starts reaching teens, stuff like that, you start explaining things to him.
Interesting.
You know, one of the things that really, really touched me as a child, and is that my father he had, you know, I saw in my own eyes, the Kitab al-Adhkar by Imam al-Nawawi, that my father picked my name from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the book he looked at in order, you know, Ahabbul Asma'i ila Allah, the most beloved names to Allah Azza wa Jalla is, you know, Abdullah and Abdulrahman. You know, like you can imagine when you see that book, and this is where it was picked from. It's amazing. My dad had a copy of Bulugh al-Maram in his house. I think I still have that kitab, the Bulugh al-Maram. My father has a child. The pages are orange, you know, those old orange pages.
Right, yeah.
That's the version he has from the Bulugh al-Maram that he studied from and he took from his mashayikh. So in that, as a young child, seeing that stuff and seeing your parent like that, it truly does. It does affect you.
So aside from the teaching that he obviously imparted on yourself and your siblings, give me an idea of his actions. Was it in line with what he was teaching? I mean, like, you know, sometimes you have parents who will say one thing but do another. Like, how important is it to make sure that the parent is actually acting upon what they're teaching?
Another thing, Sarah, I don't want to take, like, you have to understand, I didn't go on a journey to seek knowledge at that point, because I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So it was all my parents. They were doing that.
Wow.
They were making me memorize. They were making me do this. I didn't know anything. So I'll do what they tell me to do, right? But one of the things that really helped me with my parents is they're very good people. Very good people. My father was a very good man. A man who he still is, you know, a man who just doesn't waste his life in unnecessary stuff. A man who you could say busies himself with what is necessary, what's needed. You know, he's either in a masjid, he's either in his workplace and he's working. A man who's got his lihya, his clothing is above his ankles. I've never seen, my dad's always above his ankles. You see, if my father, you know, I've never seen my father shaven. He's always had his beard. Do you see my point? We're talking about this early 90s, you see. Riba, this house, my dad, none of that.
And this is all while staying in the UK?
All whilst he lives in the UK. You see, when he takes television out of the house, he's going to be affected as well, because he can't watch news or can't watch this or he doesn't mind. Yeah. So it wasn't, don't do this, don't use your phone, and the parents using the phone themselves, or you can't have television, but they've got television in their bedroom. If you don't do it, to be honest, the child is not going to do it. Wallah.
What kind of effect did that have on you when you see your dad with a short thobe, for example? You want to then wear a short thobe? Like, how does it
No,
work?
my dad used to wear trousers because when he came to the UK, a lot of people have the perception that if you wear this, they're going to do something to you.
Right, yeah.
So he had that, but it was above his ankles.
Yeah.
I mean, I first thought, what's this about, man?
Yeah.
What's this all about? Why do you have to do all of this? See, as a child, you're like a white page, a white paper. It's whatever is written on it. It's whatever anyone writes on it. That's what's going to be stuck on that paper. So the child is taking everything. He's all of that. He's taking it in. So now I saw my mum wear hijab in every circumstances. You know, in the UK in that time, a lot of Somalis that were coming into the country, they were assimilating with the society. Some might call it integration. No, they were assimilating with the society. And so they were celebrating birthdays. I could see my mum going into arguments with them. Why are you celebrating? You know, again, just to show you, wallahi, subhanAllah, how things have changed. Burger King. My mum today, Burger King, if I say like, hey, Burger King in the UK, she'll slap me. That's haram. They're strong on their you know. My father was tough on that all. So growing up, seeing all of that in the UK, for me, I'm saying all of this, it doesn't mean that I felt like I was abused and I now look at it retrospective. Wallahi, when I look back at it, all I can do is just love it and appreciate him. And it does make me call him sometimes and just tell him, you know, how much I appreciate what he's done for me and how much he's helped me. It's because of that I can sit sometimes for hours without having to communicate with anyone or anything and just read. Because I don't feel like I have to socialize or I have to use gadgets or I have to use a computer, or I don't have to, no. I can be without it.
I've heard many stories of them offline as well, and they sound like really amazing people. Jazakumullah khairan. I want to talk now a bit about your journey to seeking knowledge. So at what age did you start traveling to seek knowledge, roughly?
I'm not good with dates, so I might get it wrong or right, give or take. So I think it was about when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, give it that range, age range. I think it was 13 when I was, or 12, I went for my first Umrah. For Umrah, I went to the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Kaaba in Mecca. And when I went there, my father took me. And we stayed in a hotel close to the, we stayed in a hotel right in front of the Kaaba. And for the first time I saw the Kaaba, I walked inside it. There were durusis that were going on. There were lessons, there were, and I could see the sheikh sitting there and doing durus and teaching and explaining things for people. And people were, hundreds of them were sitting under him. At that time, the Zamzam, now it doesn't exist, but that time you could go down and you could see the Zamzam where it gushes from.
Wow.
You can go down to the Kaaba. There's a down floor you can go to where, you know, the tawaf places, Maqam Ibrahim. Yeah. There was a place you could go down. You could actually go down and you could walk and they'll show you how the Zamzam water was gushing out. We saw that and my dad told us about the story and what this is about, and you know, the ayat regarding this, and wow. And then what my dad did was he planned a man to show us from the Hajj program how Hajj is actually done. So we went to Muzdalifah, we went to Mina, we saw all of that. It was a real big trip for me. And then we went to Medina, and then we saw, you know, the Prophet's Masjid, the grave of the Prophet. We went to Uhud. We saw all of this. My father explained everything to us. And you know what my dad would say? Oh, the Jami'ah days, they used to bring a coach for us and we used to go here, but now things have changed. And you know, it was memory lane for him. For me, what happened was when I went through that trip, and I remember my heart and my aspiration just became, you know what, this is maybe what I want to do. This is maybe what I want to, this is maybe what I want to achieve. So I got onto my dad and said, Dad, you know what? I want to become an alim. I want to be a, you know, scholar. And he looked at me and he said to me, really? I said, yeah, wallahi, Dad, I really want to become, I want to learn the deen. I'm hungry for the deen. And at that time, me and my younger brother, we really loved the deen. We would always talk about it. And so I remember that particular umrah, first umrah we ever did, me and him had a discussion. And it wasn't much that I used to get the answers right. But this time I got it right. We had a debate about who is better, Nabiullahi Muhammad or Nabiullahi Ibrahim. He took the opinion Ibrahim was better. I said, Nabiullahi Muhammad, how can you? And he goes, because we don't have much dalil, you know, قال Allah and قال Rasul, the aqwal of the ulama. And so I said to him, Nabiullahi Muhammad is better because he's our prophet.
That was your reasoning.
And he was like, but he's the father of all prophets. وهكذا, we were throwing our arguments. You could see that spark was there. Even Sheikh Ahmed Tahir, you know, we used to go to his lessons that he used to do in Leighton when we were young. You know, the durus that he used to give. The love of the deen was from a young age. Wallahi.
Because your father had instilled it, after the permission of Allah, of course your father had instilled it in you.
And my uncle Ahmed Tahir always, he really installed the love of I remember one of his class, I was very, very little. I'm talking about, I was 7, 6. I still remember he was doing tafsir Surah Al-Haqqa. And he cried, the Shaykh cried. He really cried and he cried and he cried. I remember there was a tafsir. You know when I say Leighton, I mean Masjid Tawheed in Leighton.
Right, okay. I don't know Leighton. I know where Leighton is, but I don't know the masajid.
He had a class there and he went through to tafsir Surah Al-Haqqa. And to be honest, he cried. Surah Al-Haqqa is one of the hardest surahs when it comes to the Qiyamah and the Day of Judgment. So he cried. And he made the people in the, you know, from the crowds cry. That really touched me. And I was like, this, subhanAllah, you know, these people, the deen. So this is what we grew up. And we also had my mother, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate her status, wallahi. You know what she did? She bought this big cassette. You know the big cassette players? Where you have two sides. Where you play and you can place the record side where it records the tape cassette from one side to the other side.
Right,
She used to buy the original 114 surahs, the whole entire Qur'an, the 30 ajza of the Qur'an of Mahmoud Khalil al-Husari and Abdurrahman al-Sudais. Especially al-Husari, because the Qur'an teacher told her to get it. So she'd get Mahmoud Khalil al-Husari's cassettes and she would take that and she would put it into the cassette. she doesn't want us to mess up with the original one, so she would always make a copy version for us. You see, and she'll take the original one and she'll put it on her shelf in her bedroom. And so whenever it got messed up, she'll come down again for us and she would record it for us. And that's what we would use. And we would listen to that. She would put that into your ears, or she would say to you. The Qur'an teacher, what he used to do was, he used to test us on the Qur'an. And when we finish a portion of the ajza of the Qur'an, he would bring gifts and he would call Ahmad Tahir Awais to our house. You have to remember, Ahmad Tahir Awais again was the most knowledgeable man at that time in the United Kingdom. He doesn't live there in the UK now. He's a PhD scholar from the University of Medina. Knowledgeable man. He is now in London. Everyone wants to meet him. He took his time out for my father and his children, little kids. And he would cross his feet and he would listen to us. Wallah. And sometimes, subhanAllah, I remember one particular day, I never forget, we were so bad. Our memorization was extremely bad. And we embarrassed the teacher because he wanted to show his teacher that he did a good job.
Yeah.
And Shaykh Ahmad Tahir was a very busy man, and he would at night he would pray Qiyamul Layl, and at day he would be teaching. Wallah, haqiqatan is a abid. And so he slept on the chair as he was listening to us. He just slept because we were terrible what we were doing. We were messing it all up because he was hafidh bi kitab, he's a hafidh. So he'll tell you, he'll pick a verse for you, he'll pick a place for you, and he'll tell you to read. That was an embarrassing moment. And that, subhanAllah, every time he would give us a gift, one of the gifts that he gave us was cassettes, where you know, small Walkman cassettes. You remember those Walkman cassettes? You put your tape in there and you listen to it. That's what I remember. I won it. I got one as well. Anyways, after that Umrah trip, I left and I went to I asked my dad, I want to seek knowledge, and my dad sent me to Somalia.
Well, so you went to Somalia. I mean, obviously, I know you said that you're not great with dates, but give me an idea of the other countries that you went to when you were seeking knowledge. Can
I just mention some things about Somalia that I benefited from? I went to Somalia without my mother, my father.
And at a very young age?
I was about
13?
Around that time.
Okay.
I went there. I stayed with my dad's other wife. Very good woman, an honorable woman. She really took care of me. May Allah honor her and grant her Jannah to Firdaus. A very good mother. May Allah honor her. My father, when he took me there,
SubhanAllah. It's okay, take your time.
Can you give me tissue?
It's okay, I might have some. Okay, take your time.
So what happened was I came from the UK and I went to Somalia. I left my mum behind, and if I'm not wrong, my father was there before me. I think he went there. Yeah, he was before me.
Okay.
And I went with my older sister. Me and her were together. This is my first time going to my country. Never seen Somalia in my life. I've heard about it. I was so happy. I landed. The plane landed, and there was no. The country didn't have an airport, so I was shocked. You just land in the middle of. You just get off the airplane.
Really?
Yeah, there's no airport. So everyone's just standing right under the plane. So we come out. My dad's standing there. He's dressed different. You know, he's wearing the cultural Somalian clothing. Cousins picked us up. Because of lack of safety, you know, you had to get police, you know, people with guns and whatnot. I went home, I met my stepmother for the first time. Wallahi, truly an amazing woman. She used to give me good advices. She used to advise me greatly, like, man, your dad brought here for a reason. So what happened was, when I came, it was in the middle of the year, taqriban. So what my dad did was, he got me a teacher to teach us Arabic, because remember, I came from the UK.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know Arabic. So my dad, there was a teacher, may Allah bless him, he came number 1 in the secondary school in the country. He came first. And he was meant to get a scholarship to Yemen to study, and he was so energetic. He was one of the most enthusiastic people when it came to education and learning. And what happened, subhanAllah, I don't know, some complication happened. Somebody else was given his position. And so he was heartbroken. So anyways, Allah intended that he becomes my teacher. So when I came, I'm new to the country. I don't know anything. I don't know, my language, Somali, is not to the level of the people of the country. I get enrolled into that class. And in that class, there was a Canadian girl who, asaf al-shadid, now, she left Islam. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And another girl from Sweden. I don't know where she is, but I heard she's now into medicine and doctor. May Allah protect her and take care of her. And the guy, the other one. And 2 brothers from Kenya. But I was the youngest. I was very, very little. So the teacher would only hit me, no one else. He would beat me up. And I remember that first class, we started Ajrumiyah. That was my first lesson I took. It was Al-Kalam huwa al-lafdhu al-murakkabu al-mufidu bil-wad'i. I'm like, what is this? What on earth is Al-Kalamu huwa al-lafdhu al-mufidu? And so I tried to bring my head to this, get around, what does this mean? What is he talking about? We had a class of fiqh with him, where he taught us Safinatul Najah, fiqh al-Shafi'i. I had an Aqidah with him, which was the Kitab Hafid al-Hakimi, As'ila wal-Ajriba, question and answers. He would write the question and he would answer for us. Basically, what he wanted to do was, he was teach us Tarbiyah Islamiyah, and he was also teach us academic sciences as well.
Yeah.
He was all around, Allahumma barik. The idea was that we had to catch up with the secondary school kids. But remember, the secondary school kids, their subject is in Arabic, not in English. So in 1 year, I have to learn Arabic, balagha, 3 types of balagha, ilm al-bayan, ilm al-badi', ilm al-ma'ani. I have to learn nahu, I have to learn sarf, I have to also learn tafsir, qisar al-suwar. We had to do that as well. And tawheed. And hadith. Hadith was 100 hadiths. You have to memorize them from top. And they will ask you the gharaib al-alfad, the strange words in the hadith, and the ma'ani al-ijmaliyah. Very hard, complicated curriculum, to be very honest with you. It was not suitable for me. I just came from the UK. I'm an English speaker. I do not know anything about this. So what happened was, I came the first day to the class. I was wearing big shoes, I was wearing socks. I told my dad if he can get me Nike, but he got me Hike. So I came in, and I remember I was in the classroom and I was studying. That was the first path to seeking knowledge. And then another Qur'an teacher came to my house. His name is Muhammad. No, Abdul Wahab. Abdul Wahab was from, wallahi, one of the best people. Really, he went to Dimashq, Sham, Abdul Wahab, for a Qur'an competition, and he came first.
Wow.
And because he's in Somalia, from the things that our corrupted acts and our oppression and our wrongdoings in our country is that we belittle tribes, right? So they pushed his tribe down, and he could have got to that, the chance to go there and benefit from it and go to Dimashq, but he won't get it because the guy who's running the flight is not his tribe, and they're going to put him at the back. The big tribes are going to get it. He didn't get it. When he was a hafiz, mutqin, one of the unique things he had was his tajweed was very strong, extremely strong. I remember one day he led 7 juz in the Qur'an for Isha.
Allah.
And لا أنسى. Yeah, wallahi.
Up until Fajr, like it must have gone on.
Just before Fajr. قبيل صلاة الفجر. And you know what is amazing was he was a حافظ بمعنى الكلمة. حافظ. Like mutqin, his Qur'an, something else. Very merciful to me. He was a strict teacher. I heard before that he was my stepmother's Qur'an teacher as well. She said he was someone you would never want to talk to. The way he was strict. And the way he was to me, I felt he was strict to me. But she's saying this is nothing. So I grew up in that house. My stepmother took good care of me. She used to do a lot of things for me. My dad left straight away. After when he saw that I got into everything, he left. And so I was without my father and my mother. And one of the things, the good things my mother did, may Allah honor her and grant her Jannatul Firdaus. This is when parents work together, the children become good. My mother accepted to let me go. She said, go, seek knowledge. My father said, if you let this kid stay here, and he wants to deal like this, there can come a time that he could possibly not get what he wanted. So just get him, let him go. Imagine a mother letting her child go to another country, to a stepwife, your co-wife. Imagine, this is hard. Not many people can do that. My mother was willing to do that. And if she never did that, I probably wouldn't have been the place I'm in.
SubhanAllah.
Before I went to Somalia, we moved to Birmingham. We actually moved from London.
Okay.
Because my dad, he moved. I remember I was telling a story about my brother having to, say that he doesn't want to study history and whatnot.
School,
that brought a thought to my father. My father got scared now. He thought these guys are going to probably inject my son and kill him, or put something in his head or something and just say he's crazy. So my dad got really scared. And so what he did was he went to a school. He registered my brother in a school in Birmingham. It's called Al Hijra Islamic School.
Okay.
Those people of Birmingham who are hearing this are going to be. So he went to Al Hijra, my brother, my younger brother. I didn't go. I went to another secondary school, state school called Golden Hillock.
Okay.
But I didn't go that first year. First year, I remained in London. When 1 year I came after my mum.
Okay.
I stayed in London with my brother and my father. My older brother and me and my father. We went to school called Fortismere in North London. 1 year secondary school. And then I went to Birmingham and I stayed and I studied there, I think another year or two. I don't remember. Maybe 13, 14 when I was. Then I left. But at that time, Birmingham, it was getting cramped with so many Somalian kids from Holland were coming. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because if my mother never let us go, she never let me go to Somalia, all of the boys I remember that were in my school, either they're in prison or dead.
Allahu Akbar, really?
Yeah. You can have any tarbiyah you want. One of the kids who died, Abdi Ghani, may Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala take him to Jannah.
Ameen.
His mother only had him. He was the only child that his mother had. And I heard his mother lost it when she found out her son died. Can you imagine? She was raising him. That's all she had in her life. And she lost her son. And I heard she lost it. So looking back at all of that and what happened, and the kids my age, alhamdulillah, the tarbiyah at home was good, but you're in a world where you're not the only one who's trying to work on the child. Other people are trying to do their thing to your children. They're trying to brainwash him, So I went to Somalia and...
So, one thing I really want to mention, and I really hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you're speaking about how the parents coming together, making sure they're on the same page. When did your mum actually find out that you were actually moving to Birmingham? Because you told me this before, and I think there's a benefit in this. Yeah,
my father did his research. He looked up, those, back in those days, there was prospectus,
Yeah, prospectus, yeah.
No, remember there was the Muslim directory.
Okay, no, I'm not aware of that.
Those who are watching are going to know, it's called Muslim directory, where basically you can find out every Islamic school in the country. You can find any Islamic restaurants in the like now you can Google it all up. But back in those days, it used to come out. It was like a catalogue. It was like the yellow pages, the Muslim yellow pages. It was called the Muslim directory, where you could find out everything you were looking for: restaurants, housing, schools. And my dad looked it up, and he saw Birmingham. And there's one auntie who my father was, tribe-wise, we're close. He said, Hassan, bring him over, bring the children over. Don't worry. So my father, after getting everything ready, and the idea came to him very soon as well. It wasn't something he was planning out for months. But the thing that really shocked me was he came home and he just told my mum. And he said to my mum, yeah, basically, I want you guys to go to London, Birmingham tomorrow or something like that. Yeah, tomorrow. And you know, it really touched me a lot when I think about it today, and I ponder over it. Was, you know, one thing my mum was one person, subhanallah, she is a righteous wife, obedient to her husband. Ila yawmina hada, till today. She consults him in things that she wants to do. She'll take his permission. Sometimes right now, wallahi, she'll call him, she'll say, Hassan, I want to leave the house. I want to leave the house, I want to go. So he just said to her, look, you know, tomorrow we're going to go. She just got everything ready, the clothing. She keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. She some of her children have to stay.
Right, yeah.
The two of them are going to stay. These are going to go with you. These are going to stay. Okay.
Wow.
What I'm trying to say is, if my mum never did all of that, she never listened, I would, trust me, I would not be where I am today, honestly. These decisions that they were making was carving my life and was directing me in the right way. So they went and we stayed. And I really, first time in my life, I never lived with my mother. It was the first time. We used to get sad. Every day we used to call my brother. And my brother would call us up and he would tell us things like, yeah, these things over here, this is how much they cost. My younger brother. And me and my older brother would be so extremely jealous. And he would mention new things that he learned. And me and my older brother used to go to school together, Fortismew. And it was I can remember, it was very dark and dull, especially mum leaving the house. It was
a difficult time.
It was extremely difficult, yeah.
So let's go back to Somalia now. You're in Somalia, you're starting the early stages of your Islamic education.
It's funny, I moved to Birmingham. When I went to move to Birmingham, I went to an Islamic school first.
Okay.
I went to Deobandi primary school, secondary school. Indian Deobandi secondary school. It was called Al-Hira Islamic School. I wish I could see those teachers, you know, teacher Jahangir, and it would be nice to meet them now. Yeah, I used to be there, and I studied there for a period of time, and I remember they used to force Hanafi fiqh on us. So my life, it was Islam all around me. Everywhere I went, there was somehow.
Yeah.
I remember that was the time when me and my brother Abdullahi, we used to have to find out what madhab we believed and what was the view of our madhab. And so we would go to Dad and say, Dad, what's this Hanafi and fiqh and Maliki and Shafi'i? Who are these people? Who's Imam Malik and how are we Shafi'i? Who's Shafi'i? And so my dad would explain it to us. This is what Imam Shafi'i was. But why are we not just following the Prophet? It doesn't make sense. Like, why do you have to follow this person? At that time,
at that age,
we just wanted to ask questions like, why? I thought we had to follow the Prophet. This doesn't make sense. I just want to say something. In my life, I made dua when I was very young. Two du'as. The first dua was Sheikh Ahmed Tahir Awais. I used to go to his class. I told you when I was a baby, I went to a couple of his classes. To be honest, I went to a lot of his classes. I made a dua that one day I can see that Ahmed Tahir Awais, he comes to one of my lessons and he listens to it. And the second one was Sheikh Abdul Nasir, who's now in Egypt. He was the Imam of Finsbury Park. He used to lead the Tarawih for Finsbury Park. I used to pray behind him. Those two people, I made dua that Allah shows me with my two eyes. They come and they listen to me. Abdul Nasir, I said he prays behind me because he was an Imam of a masjid. Ahmed Tahir always comes to my halaqah and listens to my dars. Those two I saw in my life.
Did it happen?
It happened. I saw Ahmed Tahir sit in my class. Wallahi, with his humility, he's a very humble man, extremely humble man, truly humble man.
And you led Sheikh Abdul Nasir?
Abdul Nasir, I did a khutbah for him. Khutbah al-Jum'ah, and I led him in the salah. That was, for me personally, as a young child growing up, that was one of my goals to see that happen.
So you're in Somalia now, and you're going through your Islamic education. Roughly how many years were you there for? Can you remember?
4 or 5 years, maybe.
4 or 5 years in Somalia. And then you moved on to another country?
So I went to secondary school. I finished my secondary school there.
You at the time you were doing secular education as well as Islamic education simultaneously.
Yeah, secondary school. But the only thing is, we had like Tariq history. We had it in Arabic, and we were doing Tariq al-Abbasiyin and Umayyin and Uthmaniyin, and this is what we were Islamic history. But we had maths, science. We had biology, chemistry. We had physics. We had geography. We were doing Islamic geography in English, Arabic. We weren't doing it. Geographiya is what we were doing it in Arabic. Tarbiyah Islamiyya, which was fiqh, hadith, all of that we were doing it. Nahu and Arabic and all of that we were doing it. At that time, I was going to the school, Imam Shafi'i. I was a student of Sheikh Nur Ali Jama, a very prominent sheikh right now. Everybody now got to know him, but he was my teacher then. He was in a masjid called Masjid Umar ibn al-Khattab in X-Control, Tabaqain. That's where I used to go. I stayed those couple of years with him. I studied with him Tafsir al-Qur'an al-Kareem, the whole Qur'an tafsir he did for us. He taught us ثلاثة الأصول, كشف الشبهات, كتاب التوحيد. He did wasatiyah for us. The Shaykh did. I did from Aqidah, from ثلاثة الأصول, كشف الشبهات, كتاب التوحيد, الواسطية, الحموية. No حموية with him. Up to wasatiyah. And Ajrumiyah, I did it with him. Sheikh Nur. I truly benefited from him. And his students became my second teacher. After I moved, because I moved from the house that I was in my stepmother. I moved from and that's one of the things that I misbehaved. I wasn't good to my stepmother. I wasn't very nice. And the reason is because she had to follow a hard protocol, a very strong protocol, and I thought it was her. And at that time, I became a teenager. So you know, when you become a teenager, you can take on everybody. Yeah. So she was like, "Yeah, this boy is misbehaving."
I can't imagine that.
Wallahi, noble woman, very noble woman. So, and then I moved away from her. I left her with all of the khair that she did for me and all the good that she did for me. I went to my mum's brother.
Okay.
And I stayed with her. I stayed with him, and he was a student of knowledge, very good student of knowledge. So he took me to these classes, Sheikh Nur al-Jama's classes, and that masjid used to be packed. I'm telling you, when tafsir starts, you have to come early to catch up the class. You would sit right at the back, and I ordered my first tafsir ibn Kathir in 2004. I still have that tafsir ibn Kathir.
15, 16 years old.
I ordered my tafsir to 2005,
17 maybe, yeah.
I'm ordering my tafsir ibn Kathir. طبعا tafsir ibn Kathir came, and it has at the bottom Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani kharrajahu. So I'm asking everybody, who's this Albani? Is he Albanian? And the Sheikh is telling me the Sheikh. So I love the Sheikh so much, but I could never talk to him. So one day I found out that the uncle I'm with, his younger brother is a doctor, he's a surgeon.
Okay.
He actually did surgery for the Sheikh's hand. He did actual surgery to the Sheikh. Something happened to him. I think he had a car crash or something. And then both of them are my mum's brothers. But the younger one, he did surgery for him. And so I told my uncle, why can't we invite him into the house? Why don't we invite him? He goes, one day. So one day I came from school, and he said to me, Abdulrahman, I've got a surprise for you. And then I said to him, what's the surprise? And he said to me, Sheikh Noor's coming to us today. Make sure you clean your room properly. Sheikh's going to go all over the rooms. I didn't even ask why. Why would Sheikh go to all rooms? Anyways, I cleaned my room. I cleaned everything. I sorted out my bed. I sorted out everything. The Sheikh came to the house. The food was served. He started to drink and eat. So I said, Sheikh, because I was raised to, you eat and then you drink after that.
Yeah.
And then I said, Sheikh, didn't Allah not say, Kulu washrabu? Tackle the Sheikh, because I'm going to his tafsir classes. Did Allah not say, Kulu and then washrabu? And then he said to me, Wal wawu fi asli lughati. The waw in the asal in the Arabic language, لا يدل على الترتيب والتعقيب. It doesn't show all sequence.
It's funny because I've actually heard you mention this in your classes to this very day.
He said it doesn't show sequence and order. Like kulu washrabu doesn't mean that kulu comes. He said dakhala Zaydun wa Amrun. Zayd entered and Amr. Doesn't show Amr came before Zayd or Zayd became before Amr. And I went quiet for a little bit. But I today have another answer. If I was to meet him again, or we were to eat together, I would have said, well, I didn't say it to him then because I was miskeen and I'm still am. But if I was to meet him today, I would have said to him, Ibda bima bada Allahu bihi. When the Prophet was asked, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, should we start with inna safa wal marwata min sha'airillah? Should we start with safa or marwa? The companions asked, and what did the Prophet say? Ibda bima bada Allah bihi. Start with what Allah started with. Maybe I would have said that if I met him. But it touched me. I always loved the righteous people. I always loved the ulama and the people of knowledge. Just seeing him eat. And you know what he did when he finished eating? That's one of the things that really resonated in my heart. The people of knowledge, you learn a lot from them, wallahi. As soon as we finished eating the plate, he said, everybody, let's eat from where we dropped the food on the floor.
Allahu Akbar.
Like whatever fell on the ground, let's all eat it from there. And literally, wallahi, I remember, wala ansa, he started eating from each place. All of that which fell down, he started eating each and every one of them. I met Sheikh Noor Ali Jama' many years after, you know, and because I was very young, he hugged me and he said, "Oh, you are tall," because I'm taller than him now slightly. So he hugged me and he said, "You're very tall." And I said, "Sheikh, I've just grown in age. I've not grown in knowledge." I saw him in Arafah in Hajj. I saw in Arafah in Hajj, and all through Arafah, the day of Arafah, he was raising his hands like that. When all of the people sleeping and they were waking up and people taking qaylula here and there, I slept. I literally meaning slept. I went out and I woke up and I still saw him making dua. Still raising his hands, begging Allah in Arafah.
Allahu Akbar.
Really righteous people, like really honestly, what you learned from them behind closed doors was far greater than what you learned from their halaqat and their durus.
I really could listen to these stories all day. So we're in Somalia, and you've got obviously a lot of beneficial people around you that you're learning. They're kind of molding you as a young student of knowledge, starting on your journey. What happened next?
As soon as I finished my school there, my father was very smart to understand that if I came back from if I came back to the UK, this could probably cause a issue to me because I'm still young. I'm not old. So what he did was he planned a trip with the hunger of my mother. My mother was really pushing for it, and we went to Egypt.
Okay.
So what I did was I came to the UK for a summer holiday. By the way, keep in mind, all that time I was in Somalia, I never came to the UK.
You never even visited?
No.
Wow.
I told my dad I didn't want to come to the UK.
Okay.
Every year he would ask me. I said, no, Dad, I'm happy here. I'm really happy here. That year, my older sister was getting married who was with me. She had to get married, so I came to the UK. And when I came to the UK, I stayed there for a while, and to be very honest with you, it just didn't seem the same anymore. It just didn't seem the same. I was happy to go back to Somalia. So I said, Mom, to be very honest, I didn't know anyone anymore. Even my mom, she changed, because it's been away for a long, long time. 4 years, haven't seen anyone.
Wow.
Even though my mom visited one time, she came for 2-3 weeks. But remember, my mom's been away from the country for 20 plus years.
Right.
So when she came that time, she didn't have time for me. She's got her mother was alive at that time. She had all of her sisters to go to. She was there for a short period of time. She had to go too many places, my mother. So I didn't even get a chance to talk to her as well. And she's come back to the country. The country's begging for her. She's been away from her family for 20 plus years.
Sorry, I just want to extract a benefit. That's really powerful what you said, because you were raised in the UK. That was all you ever knew when you were very, very young. And you went away for a few years, you came back, and suddenly you're seeing the UK in a completely different light. And the reason why I want to extract that benefit is because I can completely agree with you. I was born and raised in the UK for 20 plus years, and I've only been in the UAE for 3 years. But even now, when I go back to the UK, I realize and I see it in a completely different light. And you don't actually realize until you leave the UK.
It's true.
When you actually raise and you stay in the UK or anywhere in the West, I assume it's the case, you actually become almost desensitized to it, and it's almost like you have to remove yourself to actually realize and see what the West is for what it is.
It's true.
Sorry, I just want to take.
That's true. Like, I felt when I came back, I didn't know anyone or anything. You know, everybody changed. You know what I even learned? That the older the parents get, they become softer. The strictness that my parents had when we were younger, it was a bit becoming, you know, soft and soft. They were becoming soft. So for me, it was. I want to go back. So my mum told me that we're going to Egypt. Really? I said yes. She said, yeah, we're going to Egypt. But what you have to do is, because I had a return ticket to Somalia. She said, go to Somalia, basically pack up all your stuff from Somalia, whatever you left behind, and then make your way from Somalia to Egypt. And so, yeah, that's what I did.
So you're still in your teens at this age, at this time. So you went to Egypt and you continued. And now, do you go full time into Islamic education, or are you still balancing between secular? Like, how does it work?
So when I came from Somalia, I learned grammar. I was very good in grammar. My Arabic knowledge was very good theoretically, but not practical.
Okay.
Because the country in Somalia, you don't speak in Arabic. You study it a lot, but you don't speak it. So I came, and when I came and I landed in Egypt, I couldn't speak properly. So me and my brother Abdul Hakim came, but the Hakim never came to Somalia. All of this trip I'm doing,
he's been in the UK the whole time.
Yeah, he's been in the UK all that time now. But what's amazing with that, my younger brother was, even though he was in the UK all that time, he was still seeking knowledge.
Which shows it can be done.
Yeah, working hard, very, very hard. It was like, subhanallah, even though I left him and I left, he was competing, like he was just not giving up. Honestly, he was working very hard. He was working very, very hard. So I went to Egypt then. And when I went to Egypt, I went to an Arabic institute where I can learn how to speak. I needed to brush on my speaking. Theory wasn't enough. You needed to practically learn how to speak. So me and my brother, we went to the Markaz, and I went a level higher because I just came from the country. He was from the UK, even though and it was a level or two lower than me. I don't remember exactly. So then I started speaking Arabic to the teachers and classes. To be very honest with you, I was not in any way, shape or form ever revising for these classes. I never had to revise. I just just leave, come back. There was a young boy who used to be in my class, Somalian kid, very strong kid. Allah yarhamu, he died now. His name was Mustafa. He was in my class. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala bless that brother. Wallahi, he had something coming, you know, from him. It was truly amazing. He was younger than me plus that, imagine that. And he was in the same class as me. Because he came from Somaliland at that time as well. He came from Hargeisa. He studied there. And I came from Somalia. So we were like same roughly. And after he went to Damaj, by the way, to seek knowledge. But he died, rahimahullah. May Allah have mercy on him.
Ameen.
And have mercy on his mother. Wallahi, truly an honourable woman. Very honourable, hard-working woman. May Allah bless her as well. So, yeah, we used to go to that class. And then from there, I met UK brothers for the first time. I mean, I was not... My English has gone very, very bad. So I meet these brothers. I talk to them. We converse. We get to know each other. My brother, Abdul Hakim, he picked up on a lesson that was taking place in Shubra, in Masjid Tawheed, by a sheikh by the name Mustafa Al-Adawi. Abdul Hakim picked up that, and we started to go. Me and Abdul Hakim, I remember we went to that class, and Sheikh Mustafa Al-Adawi, he asked a question. I had two classes. He had a tafsir class and a Sahih al-Bukhari class. And the first question I remember, I literally remember that day he asked was, does anyone know the name of Salama? Does anyone know the name of Salama, the Prophet's wife? Literally, I looked around and said, whoa. Including myself, I didn't know it. I was like, wow. And I remember he said something. He said, look, it's the Prophet's wife. No one knows her name. And that really was...
That resonated you to this very day. You still remember that?
Mm-hmm. So I even met Sheikh Mustafa Adawi again in the Haram.
Did you tell him the answer? Did you tell him the answer? Yeah,
definitely. No, I just told him, Sheikh, you know that statement you said, I saw him in i'tikaf in Ramadan the last 10 days. And I said, Sheikh, you know that day what you said, it really helped me. You know, sometimes, Sheikh, you might say something, could stick with somebody on the other side of the world, and it benefits them.
Well, that is true. So at this stage in your studies, are you still like, is it formal institutionalized education in a school, or are you like sitting in the durus of the ulama? How's it working?
It was with institution, because I just graduated from secondary school, right? So secondary school was an Islamic school.
In Egypt?
In Somalia.
Oh no, sorry, I'm talking about Egypt.
In Egypt, I graduated from the the Markaz, where I did the Arabic program at this point. So I finished, at that time it was called, it's still called Al-Fajr, but it was the best at that time, the Arabic program. So it was Al-Fajr. I finished it. That was my only formal studying at that moment that I did at that particular moment.
Okay.
And of course the hudur of the mashayikh. But personally, at this moment, at this particular moment, my parents were more concerned with the idea of the concept and the knowledge. And that's how I always saw from my father and my mother.
So unpackage that a bit. What do you mean by that?
They were more into the idea of what do you know. My father always asked me, what have you memorized? Can you, like when we go to the khutbah al-Jum'ah, he would always ask me, what did the khatib say? What did you understand from the khutbah al-Jum'ah? Explain it to me in details. Like that's what he would focus on. Like it was always about what you understood and what you knew, not to what you what qualifications you had. Or one of my shuyukh that I studied with and I'm become very close with and truly helped me is a sheikh by the name of Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud. And he recently was here. Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud was recently here. He's a man I benefited, utmost benefited. And I truly consider I consider him to be very, very knowledgeable, a scholar, haqqan, truly. His knowledge is very vast. His understanding of the deen is very, very strong. May Allah honor him in this world and the hereafter. Very close with him, a very close relationship. And he never took a formal studies. You know, no formal studies. Rather, I saw times when Sheikh Ahmed Tahir Awais, who is, PhD holder in Jamia Islamiyya, Medina al-Munawwara, PhD. I actually saw him say to Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud, what do you think the answer of the question is? In a mu'tamar. Actually look at him and say, what do you think? I remember one day my father invited Ahmed Tahir Awais. When my father invited him over, Sheikh Ahmed Tahir said to my dad, you have to invite Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud. Sheikh Ahmed Tahir is very close to Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud. And Sheikh Ahmed Mahmoud came, Sheikh Ahmed Yari, he came to the house. When he came, let me start before I go into this. Sheikh Ahmed Tahir said something to my father. He said to him, Ahmed Mahmoud is someone like me. I remember that, wallahi, la ansa. He said he's like me. So, and formal, if you look at formally, Ahmed Tahir was,
much higher in terms of qualifications. And
yeah, so I appreciated my life. The idea of qualifications came after that. Ijaza even after that. The concept of do you have a certificate for this just came after in my mind. I always focused on what do I know? Do I understand this? Do I grasp this? I'm Sheikh Nur Ali Jama. I consider him to be very knowledgeable. No Islamic qualifications. He actually studied in an old classical way where go to halaqah and you finish the Sheikh's program and you go to another halaqah. Hakada. That's how they used to be.
So let's go into this a little bit. How much value should we place on Islamic qualifications? Is it the case we put no value whatsoever, or is there some? Like, where do we find a balance?
No, I don't undermine it. I don't say it's not needed, and I think it's something, it's good. It's good, but it doesn't really matter if you have qualification, you don't have the understanding. But if you have the understanding, you have no qualification, there's no problem.
Right, I see. It's all about the understanding, the knowledge.
It's really that knowledge that you have and the understanding that really matters. If you get the qualifications, it's the cherry on the cake. And it's that cherry on the cake. It's not the asal, to be very honest with you. I went to Saudi Arabia And I stayed in the house of Sheikh Ahmed Tahir Awais' younger brother, Musa Tahir Awais. He taught me Ilm al-Fara'id and he taught me Nukhbatul Fikr. Musa Tahir, I stayed with him in Mecca. And while I was with him in Mecca, we used to go to the dars of Sheikh by the name of Sheikh Yahya Uthman. Sheikh Yahya al-Mudarris is known as. He's an Indian Sheikh originally. Wallahi, you learn tawadu from him, humility and humbleness. Sarahatan. You know what he does? I took from him Fath al-Majid and Tafsir ibn Kathir. Okay? And a portion of Sahih Muslim that he did. He used to read Sahih Muslim with the Sharh of Nawawi. You know what he does? He's still alive. May Allah give him a life full of ta'ah and obedience. Shaykh al-Mudarris would sit there and he would read the kitab Fath al-Majid. He literally read the whole book with the Sharh of Abdulrahman Hassan Ali Shaykh. He would just give little ta'liqat here and there and little explanations here or there. And he wouldn't lift his head up and look and talk. He wouldn't explain anything. He would just stick to the book. Right now, if you go to his durus, I don't know now. I don't remember the last couple of years, last 5 years. I don't know, or last 10 years. I don't know. But before that, he had, only the African brothers that would go there. People wouldn't value his durus. He's been there for years. I heard, and he's got ijazat, very big ijazat. Sheikh Muqbil praised him and everything. The point I'm coming to is Sheikh Musa Tahir Awais, he would say, when we walk in there, me and Sheikh Musa would go together to the dars and we would sit with Sheikh Yahya al-Mudarris. And I would see Sheikh Musa, who's a graduate from Medina University. I would see him sitting with Sheikh Yahya al-Mudarris and learning Fath al-Majid and Sharh Sahih Muslim by Imam al-Nawawi. And I would say, Sheikh, like, I studied this book before. I have to take it. But the truth is, wallahi, you learn more than just a book, wallahi. You learn more than just a book.
Yeah. I think since we're on this topic of qualifications and the difference between qualifications and not having qualifications, and I know you're going to really hate me and kill me for saying this, but at the same time, you're working towards your PhD now. So there is obviously some benefit that you personally derive from a formal academic environment. What is the benefit there?
Definitely, I wouldn't say that there's no benefit. One of the benefits that you take from doing university programs, PhDs, masters, is the dissertation you write, the buhuth that you have to do. These researches that definitely you learn from it, how to research, what books to rely on, what kind of methodology you should take when you're writing your bahth. It's not just merely just throw this naqal here and just throw this naqal here. You have to organize even the evidence from strongest to weakness. وهكذا. Your bahth has to be done in a amiq way. The book that you're going to be using, it has to be consistent from the same taba'a. All these are things that would be picked up from. And while I was in this Mamlaka, Saudi Arabia, what I would do is I used to try to go to these where they do niqashat ilmiya, where they do niqashat of the dakatir. Even when I was in Egypt, even recently when I went to Egypt, I go Azhar. They stick on the wall that there's going to be a thesis research of Fulan ibn Ali. You don't know who it is, but you look at whatever researches are happening that are going to take place, and if it amazes you, you go and you listen, and you see how they basically interrogate the person and how the legend talk to him. So I found that to be very beneficial from these PhDs and from these academic studies, Islamic academic studies. But as for knowledge, as for gaining Islamic knowledge from it, personally, I didn't think I found that from it. And I also didn't find the tarbiyah that you get from a sheikh if you sat with him and just watch him do things. And I also think the jami'at, they don't give that to you as a student. You actually lose all of that. They take, even if you did have it in the beginning and you go there, sometimes it can take that away from you. You can. You can. Illa man rahima rabbi. That is taken from the halaqat, to be very honest. You get that from the halaqah. Now the jami'ah that I'm going to, that's the same thing. You go to the halaqah, you go to the jami'ah. If you check out the jami'ah, you're going to be disgusted, really disgusted to your core of, what kind of teaching ethics that they have. And what kind of, the teacher that's meant to teach that subject, the way he's dressed, the way he talks, the way he's picking up it's so much things that, I went to Azhar for before you go to accepted into the Jami'ah, I study, you have to go to the buhuth, and there's a classes that you have to participate. Imagine this, the kids were whistling in the class. They're whistling in the class. They're calling the teacher's name in the class. Azhar University, imagine that. They're mocking the teacher. The fiqh teacher that was teaching in the Jami'ah, he smokes. He finishes his smoke, he throws it, and he comes in. And he takes the pen. It's like a shift for him. It's a 9-to-5 job. It's a shift. He looks at the time and he leaves. So that's why I realized this is for the ulama and the people of knowledge that you need to take that from.
I think this has been extremely beneficial so far. We're running out of time for this, but I think we're definitely going to have a part 2 to continue on with this. For now, that's all we have time for. Subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
I hope you enjoyed and benefited from that discussion. Please do share it with your friends and family members if you feel like they might benefit too. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button below so you're notified of any new episodes. Check out www.thehotseatpodcast.com. That's thehotseatpodcast.com. On there, you'll find a little bit more information about the podcast, and you'll also have the chance to vote for which topic you'd like to see discussed on the show. You can also ask questions on the website to the speaker himself about these contemporary modern day issues. Until next time, fi amalillahi wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.